Dear brothers and sisters, I want to start with a scene from Hajj that all of us would love to represent our ending. There was a man in our group, Dr. Subuh, who after finishing Tawaf al-Ifada on the day of Eid, and Hajj is of course, with all of its rituals, two pillars. Al-Hajj Arafah, Hajj is the day of Arafah, and then Tawaf al-Ifada. And as he finished his Tawaf al-Ifada, and he came outside of the Haram, he saw an elderly man from Palestine, actually from Palestine, who was making Hajj from Palestine, who collapsed right in front of him. And so he got down and he put him in his lap. He tried his best to resuscitate him. He tried his best to keep him alive. And as he realized that the man was escaping, that his soul was leaving his body, he repeats to him as the Prophet ﷺ taught us to do the Shahada. And you can imagine, subhanAllah, this man leaving this world in his ihram, less than 24 hours after Arafah, performing Tawaf al-Ifada, just shaving his head, saying, La ilaha illallah. Your entire life is for this one moment. And subhanAllah, how badly would you want that to be your ending? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes you from this world, literally, as you are purified from your sins like the day that your mother gave birth to you, saying La ilaha illallah, staring or looking at the Kaaba, still in your ihram, going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pure. Now, was this man some special wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some special friend of Allah his entire life? We don't know. Did he make tawbah perhaps a day before or a year before? Or was it in the hours that preceded that he expressed a desire to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe even internally, that his life would end there? We don't know. What is it that leads to the culmination of those events and to that moment? Now I want to walk you back. Saying La ilaha illallah at the time of death is a special gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it represents a connection that a person has with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that allows them the ability to express that in their last moments. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us al-thabat, grant us firmness with La ilaha illallah as we live, as we leave this world, as we enter into our graves when the angels come to us, and as we rise up on the day of judgment. Allahumma ameen. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. It's that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't come automatically. It doesn't come that easy. Now I want you to leave that to the side for a moment and then come back to a question that many people ask themselves. How come I'm not feeling that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or maybe even if I am feeling that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I may not be considered amongst those who are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there is ghurur as well, there is deception and delusion. You could be crying in your salah, you could be reading the Quran, you could be fasting Mondays and Thursdays, but there are sins that are distancing you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the exact same rate, and they don't come to you until the moment of your death, and then they confront you at that moment, or they confront you when you rise up on the day of judgment. But where is that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the mistake that we make with our major acts of worship and with our daily lives is that we only try to remedy our deficiency in worship with worship. That we see things in an isolated way, and they are the entire package. And as Hajj is actually the culmination of your entire life, and it connects the dots between your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your relationship with the people around you, the things that you have to disconnect from in order to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you can't do tawaf unless you enter into your ihram at the miqat, unless you change out of your state. And when you come into that state of ihram, there's a mindset. Before you go to the Kaaba and you make tawaf in Umrah or in Hajj, it connects it all so beautifully. And for so many of us, we treat our deficiency in worship in isolation of one another. Why is it that I can't connect when I read the Quran? Well, maybe I just need to give it more time. True, you do need to give it more time. Why is it that I can't pray more? Why is it that I feel a blockage of Qiyam al-Layl in my night prayer? Why is it that I feel that I'm not able to immerse myself in dua? Why this? Why that? And we try to treat it and remedy it within and say that's where the connection is failing. But our beings, are all interconnected in this regard. And subhanAllah, just like with Ramadan, a major act of worship, one of your pillars of Islam, your accepted Ramadan is about whoever does not leave off false speech and acting upon that false speech, then Allah has no need of their fasting. Your fasting is salim, is preserved by your entering and exiting your fast without the intake of haram, at the spiritual level and at the physical level. Not about how much qiyam you prayed, not about how much Quran you read. You could have an accepted Ramadan and maybe read a few pages of Quran. I'm saying that is possible, it's not ideal, but you could go through, technically speaking, from the Hilal of Ramadan to the Hilal of Shawwal and not read the Quran at all on your own, and you could still have an accepted Ramadan so long as you preserved yourself from those things. It's not going to be a good Ramadan, but it could be an accepted Ramadan. Likewise, Al-Hajj. What is Al-Hajj al-Mabrur? What is an accepted Hajj? It's about you not doing those other things. It's about you not arguing. It's about you not fighting. It's about you not cursing. It's about you not sinning. It's about what you're not doing as much as it is about what you are doing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts all of this as a package for us in a way that represents our lives.